Hi pals, it's me, Artie, there in pronouns only. I still don't feel good. I did a really small local market yesterday from whilst I'm filming. Honestly, it just completely wiped me out and it has triggered migraines again. I've been dealing with a migraine today. I am glad to see the Heartbreak High video is doing really well. I kind of didn't think it would. I was skeptical that it would do well. I think mostly because I just haven't seen a ton of stuff online, fandom-wise, analysis-wise. Funnily enough, like maybe a day ago, I saw someone I'm subscribed to on YouTube actually talking about Heartbreak High. So yeah, I didn't really expect it to do as well as it has done. So thank you. Hello to all the new people. My friend said, I guess you're filling that gap in the market. And I was like, well, yeah, I think that's why I wanted to make it anyway. But I don't know, I just didn't really expect it to do as well as it has done. In my video today, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about something that I have not really spoken about on here in great detail because we are coming up to getting close to my, like, I don't remember the exact date, but my 6 years since I was last dating somebody. And I wanted to talk about why I chose to stay single and what led to that, what's happened since, and yeah, just to kind of talk through it on here. There's obviously a lot of things I don't really want to go too into because, surprisingly, I don't speak to any of my exes. I changed my shirt because I was feeling self-conscious. Wasn't enjoying how that other shirt looked, so different shirt. I don't speak to any of my exes. We did not have good relationships. And there's definitely a lot of things I don't want to go into detail about, both for my own well-being, but also for those other people. I don't really want to drag any of what happened between any of us back up. So yeah, I won't be going into detail of, who did what, anything like that. I would also like to very quickly say this is definitely not necessarily a hard video to make, but definitely a more vulnerable video for me to make. I cry all over this channel. I'm not bothered about crying, but I am bothered about sharing personal things about myself like this. So if the comments get weird, don't you worry, babe. I will just block you immediately because, beauty is subjective. For one, I already know I'm not most people's flavour. I really don't need you to say so, babe. So if anyone's gonna, just don't. Just don't. Because that's also not the point of this video at all. The point is not about my desirability aesthetically or whatever, because I already know that's not the problem. I think a lot of the issues I've had in relationships come from a few different places. Through all of the relationships I've had, I didn't know I was autistic or ADHD. I figured those things out after I decided to become and remain single for a while. I did know I had BPD and I was diagnosed sometime within that last relationship I had. Didn't have the best relationship with one parent in particular and didn't really have a good example of what a healthy relationship, romantic one anyway, looks like. And as well, obviously, I think none of those things are rare. And also I think as well, a lot of us are brought up to value romantic relationships above others and to always be looking for a romantic partner. In some ways, I feel like I was a little bit late coming to relationships, but also in the grand scheme of things, I really wasn't. It felt that way to me because it seemed like everybody around me was already or already had had, you know, kinds of boyfriends and stuff through childhood, whereas I think my first experience I was maybe 13, which I think is probably like average age, maybe a little bit young actually in the grand scheme of things now that I'm nearly 30. So I've had a host of different kinds of partners since the age of 13, and the one thing that I feel like really connects them all is just that nobody knew how to communicate, including myself. And the thing that I have been talking about for years since, you know, realising I was autistic, is that a lot of people generally don't really want to put in the effort to learn how to communicate with me specifically. I've had abusive partners. That's another reason why I don't want to go into some of those details. But I just basically had no real concept or understanding of what to really be expecting from relationships. It kind of all came from media, a lot of it, because like I said, what I saw around me wasn't great. And also through those years I was still discovering a lot of really big things about myself that meant that I didn't know a lot of my own boundaries, didn't know a lot of the things that I actually wanted from a relationship, whether I even wanted a relationship. You know, there were lots of things that are just super common for everybody as a teenager or like someone in their early 20s. I did notice that I was in a bit of a terrible toxic cycle in my 20s that I don't really know when this started, because I'm pretty sure there were some periods of time where I did take time away from partners, dating, trying to find someone, etc. But it was definitely something that I was really magnified when I went to uni, that I found myself in this cycle that I think I was probably already doing before I came to uni. That like I would find someone that I was so crazy for, both metaphorically and literally. Things would get really intense. They wouldn't last very long. They wouldn't be happy for very long. They would get very shitty, very toxic very quickly. And then they would end one way or another, whether it was them leaving or me pushing them away or me leaving. There were a lot of times where I left because I was scared of being left. Hello BPD, that's kind of the main thing in the story here, really. Or when I was left, it was just so physically painful that I did not know how I was going to get through it again. And my coping strategy through those years was to find somebody else. Find a new partner, find somebody else to date. I was in a really bad cycle of doing that. That I would be with somebody for a few months, things would go really bad, they would end, I would feel so down and empty that I did not want to be here. The distraction was getting on a dating app and finding somebody else. I've experienced dating apps through quite a variety of identities and outward appearances, and they were all terrible, really. That is why I have genuinely sworn off dating apps for life. For life. I'm not doing that again. Part of it is that I don't like the person that I am mentally when I'm on those dating apps. It kind of feels very shallow and judgmental, and that is also very opposite and conflicting to what my sexuality is like. Yeah, I do value someone's appearance, but that is not in the strictest sense of has to look typically attractive, has to be ridiculously hot. It's just that as long as I find them attractive, then we're good. If I don't find them attractive, then that's kind of it, you know? I have been called shallow for that, which I think is very interesting, considering most cisgendered white men have a tick box list of what they expect their partners to be, whereas I'm like, well, as long as I think they're hot. And yeah, for me, a lot of the times as well, a huge factor in me finding somebody attractive is their personality, getting to know them, welcome to the asexual spectrum, my guys. I've had a very long, terrible relationship with myself, and that is basically what the root of the problem has been. Did not like myself very much as a teenager. I have dealt with many eating issues, eating disorder, behaviour, very destructive life patterns, self-harm, and very damaging relationships with people, friends, family, partners. I thought it was getting better as I was getting older, as I had moved away from a lot of the outward behaviours. But I realised that sort of like near the end of university in 2018, which was when I had my last relationship, that actually I had just kind of moved the self-destructive behaviours from those things listed to relationships, or like had really zoned in on those, because I definitely did a lot of those other things before anyway. I did have one night stands, but they were always with somebody I at least had some kind of relationship with, somebody I'd known and built some kind of a rapport with. So I've never slept with somebody I didn't really know / get to know at least like a little bit. But I did understand that that was a way to show people that you were desirable, I guess. And I've never felt like a desirable person because of just all the past shitty relationships I've had of different kinds. I've had a few friends who've had similar issues with relationships that I'm kind of talking about. Some of the worst things that happened within my relationships, like I said, was that the communication was just not there. I also had a very anxious attachment style with my partners. Mostly anxious, but sometimes avoidant. And that's on mental illness. I feel like a lot of my behaviour and responses in those relationships was basically down to mainly my BPD. Those are the reactions that I feel like are the hardest and not the most fair on people. However, it was also kind of the only way I even really knew how to communicate, I think is the easiest way to kind of explain that, because I had kind of gone from being a very internalized BPD, that everything was always my fault, to kind of an externalized version of that where it was a lot more explosive to myself, to then just being outwardly more explosive. But also, as I tried to work on some recovery steps, I understood that, you know, a lot of the time I just needed to be able to communicate with the people that I was having mental illness about, basically. When those BPD symptoms were being triggered, I knew that I needed to just hear certain things from people, but I just generally did not feel heard. And that's where I feel, for me, not necessarily the overlap, but like the combination of being autistic and not knowing it, and acquiring BPD, because I think personally my BPD has been from trauma. But like, yeah, the overlap of having these two experiences in my life meant that like BPD was my way of trying to communicate with the world, because I didn't know how, and it would just kind of get progressively worse and progressively bigger like responses, outbursts, because I felt unheard. And that wasn't always in my romantic relationships, but friends and other relationships I've had too. And that's why still to this day one of my biggest triggers is just not feeling heard or listened to. Having to constantly repeat myself and constantly trying to explain what I mean because somebody's assumption is incorrect is very triggering to me. I don't mind communicating that with people, and like if someone's not sure what I mean and we talk about it, or like we've built a relationship like now where we can go, oh no, actually I meant this, oh okay, cool. It's a lot easier to kind of deal with that trigger, because I kind of know when someone's not doing that intentionally. A lot of these bad relationship patterns were just very disruptive to my life in general, and were really disruptive to my friendships as well. Like I said, I didn't really feel like I had any worth without a partner. I didn't value my friends as much as a partner, because honestly, for most of my life, I've not really had friends who truly showed friendship to me. Some of the times that I really felt closest to people was being in a relationship with somebody, which then obviously doesn't set up a great thought for the future, that the only person who's going to really feel close to you and understand you is one person, because then what do you do with all of your time? I definitely had a very unhealthy expectation of being very enveloped in each other, being each other's everything. Again, that's the thing that we're all taught. That's the thing that's kind of normalized to us. I hope it's not so much nowadays to kids and teenagers, but that's kind of the messaging that I grew up with, is that. The other side of that coin as well would be that I might just split on people that I really liked because of that fear of being hurt or abandoned all over again. I think it really occurred to me how much of a problem it was towards the end of my university time, because I feel like at university was kind of the first time I really felt like I had a group of people who were my friends and understood me and didn't judge me first before either getting to know me or asking whether that's what I meant. And I had friends who were very supportive of because at that point was sort of my discovery process of working out that I probably have BPD and probably need some support. I need to work out what to do from there. And I was spending so much of my free time and energy chasing romantic partners, really. But I really felt very negatively impacted by what I was allowing myself to do, because that's kind of it at the end of the day, is that I was making those choices to ignore my feelings. It's also obviously not as simple as the way that it's worded in that section, and I just want to make sure that that's really clear, that I don't just think you can just make a decision, because mental illness does impact your ability to make logical and sound decisions. There is so much that is needed support wise to go from being unable to make sound decisions to improve your life, to then being able to make those decisions, and then also being able to actually act upon those decisions rather than the mental illness side of it all. I feel like that's what's usually missing in a lot of healthcare, mental health care as well, is there's so much focus on CBT and mindfulness and meditation that we're not really actively supporting traumatized people specifically, which CBT doesn't usually work for, or really providing them with the support to be able to reflect on some of those less glamorous and romanticized parts of mental illness, to be able to actively participate in recovery and management of these probably lifelong conditions. I don't know if that's even explained really what I wanted to explain there, but that's the best I got for you. And yeah, I was at the end of my third year, or coming to the end of the third year. I had a bunch of assessments I needed to finish and other things I had to do as the semester was ending, and lots of other things were going on in my friendship groups and in my living situation. Yeah, I think when you realise that one of your housemates has to sit with you so that you don't feel any urges like that, or don't act on the urges that you're saying you feel, it kind of just really woke me up, and it made me really angry, because this wasn't the first time I feel that way or have felt that way after basically every relationship that's ended, that I feel so so much deep despair that I don't know how I'm going to get through that emotion. It's so strong, and it just feels like this huge pit of emptiness. You feel so hollow. You just don't fucking care. You just don't care about anything else anymore. And that's when I would go and do other destructive things to myself. But this time woke me up because I went to university because I felt like it. I did not have any particular plan or route or road or career path I was going down. I'd taken a year out before I started to look into university courses. So I was 2 years behind when I was at uni, but I decided to go because I wanted to learn more about this thing, and I also wanted to have some more of those life experiences of being a more independent person, because where I live, as you know, is so rural that it means you can't really be your own person here, and then the prices of like living and stuff are not too different to London, that there was basically no way I'd be able to live alone. And because of mental illness in it, I disappeared for like a year or so after college, so around sort of like age 18 to 19-ish, because also that was when I had another terrible breakup. So yeah, I disappeared off the face of the earth around then, so I didn't really have any friends because everyone has stopped trying to get in contact with me anymore. So I kind of wanted to just start again, just wanted to start again. So that was what uni was for me in a lot of ways, that and self-discovery, and I just wanted to learn and wanted to do something different. I just wanted to be somewhere different. That is one of the few things that I think has been similar throughout my life, is that I just like to try and do different things. I just want to do something different, try out something different. Hello ADHD, I guess. But I feel like that's definitely been something that's helped me continue to grow and have so many new experiences, and help me decide what is and isn't for me. I used to be a massive people pleaser as well, so uni was definitely a period of time where I was trying not to do things like that, but that definitely solidified more post-uni. So yeah, like, because I'd decided to come to uni of my own volition, it was something that I cared about doing, that nobody else was forcing upon me, I was pissed that so this is how my brain was thinking through it. I'm not saying any of this is necessarily correct or true, but in my head I was like, I can't believe I'm letting somebody make me feel this bad about myself, that I might fuck up my entire degree that I chose to do, that I wanted to come here and do by myself. I can't believe I'm letting that happen. So then I went, you know what, I'm not letting that happen. And that's kind of where Spite 2.0 entered the chat, because Spite, the initial Spite, turned up in like 2012. So Spite 2.0 was in 2018, and that was when I was being a lot more, I would kind of say, radical in how I was approaching my BPD. I think I was diagnosed in May or April of 2018, so it's also 6 years since my diagnosis. I had kind of made the decision that I did not want to end my life and I didn't want to ruin it, so I had to start just being really fucking blunt and honest about what was going on in my brain, even if it was kind of embarrassing, even if it felt like I was being needy or codependent, because I have never really had much of a chance to develop secure friendships, secure attachments with friends. I felt relatively secure with most of the friends in this time. I would later learn I was stupid. Like, only one of them was still in my life. But anyway, those people, even though they are not in my life anymore, they definitely did a lot of heavy lifting to help me through some of this, because that period, like towards finishing up my degree, having the summer there and then having to move home, and then getting really fucking sick and then having a lot of other fucking problems, which is a different fucking video. They, did a lot to help me through some of those things. I would send text messages to some of my close friends when I was having a really bad moment, being like, why are you friends with me? Because one of the biggest things I realised is that I had actually still not developed my self-esteem. I had not developed my own self-worth. I did not value myself, and I did not understand why people would value me. So part of developing that was just feeling able to say, hey friends who I think is really great and cool, can you tell me why you think I'm really great and cool? Thank you. I'm mentally ill. XOXO. And it helped. There were also a few people who had to hear repeatedly the same insane person monologue in my brain. And they knew that I was never going to take their advice, even if it was logical. They knew that it didn't matter what they said. They knew that basically I just needed somebody as like a soundboard so I could process my feelings and what happened. Autism. Autism. And like I said, some people had to just sit with me to make sure I did not feel so sad and alone that I would act on impulses I had, particularly when some of my closer friends were not in the area at the time. Like a couple of them were on a trip at that point. And yeah, I think, I can't remember if this is something that I had learned already by that point or not, but I was definitely taking it like a day at a time, trying to focus on this project, or like these projects, to try and finish my degree, and focusing on managing those feelings as and when they came up. And then I think after that was when I was like, yeah, I think I need to just not date anyone for a while. I had no particular like time frame in mind, and like I've definitely spoken to people on dating apps during that, like, you know, the last 6 years, but also they solidified my feelings of why dating apps suck no matter what they are marketed at or as. I was also doing like low cost counselling at the time, where I was definitely talking about a lot of this stuff. Yeah, everything then became even more unstable when I had to move home and then got really sick. I had to prioritise me. I had to prioritise my relationship to myself. I had to prioritise my mental health and well-being. I knew I wouldn't be able to be the partner I wanted to be if I didn't. And I knew I wouldn't be able to find the partner that I wanted to have if I didn't do that. Because I think as well, a lot of that time, in some ways I was just so surprised that a lot of these people even were interested in me back. If you put those people in front of me today, like those people as they were then, I really do not think I would have stuck around for as long as I did, even though a lot of the times they did not last long at all. Because whilst I still don't really have a solid idea of what it is I want or I'm looking for, I do have some like basic parameters which I don't think I really had then. A lot of my sense of self has changed but also solidified, which I think also has helped with a lot of BPD stuff anyway. The overlap of BPD and autism and ADHD, of like people pleasing, changing yourself for other people, being told you should be being somebody else for a partner, for other people, because yourself is not good enough, basically masking. Like that's not how to find someone who's going to stick around, because when you can't keep the mask on anymore, whether it's because you're literally fucking insane or because you're autistic and you've burnt out, you don't have the energy to keep pretending to be that, or because of my chronic illnesses, I just physically do not have the energy to be that kind of perfect person anymore. I always felt like as soon as I was no longer this, I wouldn't say that it's not me that people meet, but I'm saying that's just the early stages me you meet, because it's the same with my friends. I feel like I act this like similarly when it comes to meeting people for friendship, and I think this is very normal. It's just not really something that I feel like is super openly talked about. You slowly get to know people. Wild, I know. I didn't really finish that point that I think was really important for this video, but like I felt like as soon as I couldn't always be the person that people initially meet me as, that I was no longer worthy or wanted around, because yeah, it always just seemed to be that whenever things were more real and like it became obvious that I had problems in my life, not with everybody but with a good amount of people I dated, that as soon as that, you know, normal aspect of being a human kind of showed itself, but also the mental illness showed itself, that I was no longer valued or welcome to be around them anymore. They definitely would change how they looked at me, treated me, spoke to me. And yeah, I definitely felt like a burden to a lot of partners I had, which is, you know, at bare minimum is not what I want in a relationship. Everybody has their baggage. Everybody needs support. Like, you know, everybody has varying needs of support throughout their life. I don't want somebody who is going to treat me in that way or make me feel that way anymore. So that was the point that I didn't really get across. I got distracted. I felt like it was always such an extreme for me, and I still feel that way, that you know, one day I can be a very like high functioning, sane person who's happy and able to do things and excited to do things and has the energy to do things, and then like the next day will be the complete fucking opposite. That combined with the lack of any good communication I had with any of those partners was just, yeah, was not going to go anywhere good, and it was never going to go anywhere good. I decided that what I really wanted to do was put more focus as well on friendships, because yeah, like I said, I am also not really actually friends with any of those people from that period of my life, and I really thought I'd found it, like the magical it that I'd been looking for, the people, the place, and I hadn't. As soon as I had to move back home, I think only one person really came to see me. A couple of other people made the effort to meet up with me at times. And I definitely wasn't great to some people as well. I'm sure that I just left a lot of people on red too. Like, but yeah, the people who I really thought were like it and were really important parts of forming who I've become today. Yeah, it was just as painful as losing those romantic partnerships. Yeah, I wanted to start trying to find friendships who were actually going to stick around and like make more of that effort with me, because I think generally I feel like a lot of the times my energy is not reciprocated in relationships overall. Still experiencing that now, don't worry. People do not get any better. You just got to find the right fucking people, which is exhausting. And yeah, as well, my politics changed. My politics developed a lot, and that was also a really big part of what kind of friends I wanted. So yeah, what have I been doing the last 6 years? Focusing on my health, obviously. Welcome to my channel. I cry a lot here about being treated really badly by medical professionals and just living with ill health. Focusing on myself, my mental health, realising I'm ADHD and autistic. I think that was really the game changer overall, because I think that's what then has led me to finding more of what I would call my people for me. I feel like realising I was autistic has really helped with my BPD recovery in a lot of ways, because I did have a friend from uni who was an acquaintance at uni, and then we got really close after uni, who also has BPD, and she was sort of telling me about DBT stuff because for some reason I could never fucking access it, you know that, because I'm only just now in a steps fucking course. And I remember her sort of explaining this idea of like the logical side of your brain, and that's what you've got to sort of like exercise when you have BPD. So I was already kind of doing that, but realising that a lot of my growing up has basically taught me to gaslight myself as an autistic person, and that actually a lot of my initial instincts were trustworthy, and I've been gaslit into believing that I was just, paranoid, anxious. I was correct, babe. I was correct. And realising actually a big part of being autistic for me is actually logical thinking. Sometimes though, it does make me insane. Because yeah, I will sit there having my big feelings and feeling triggered and being really upset and perceiving things in a certain way. My brain will be like, yes, but it could also, you don't know this, it could also be that, blah blah blah, and then it's like, yes, but that doesn't make me feel any better. It still sucks. However, it did help me not always feel like it was my fault all the time. Most of the time it's your fault, babe. I still have body image issues, disordered eating issues. I think a lot of that is overlapping with my autism too. I don't think I could have dealt with all those things whilst dating or trying to find a partner or being with somebody, really. Sorry, the window is now open because I'm just getting really warm from the sun setting. What I was just about to say, it's just fucking left my brain again. I'm very exhausted by doing this video. My brain is clearly not working very well, and my body is not dealing with it very well. But I remember the point I was going to make. Basically, one of the main reasons that I decided to stay single for a while was because I was so scared of being alone. I had to show myself that I could be alone. Since the age of like maybe, I don't know, I feel like my whole life I've been chasing crushes, and since age of maybe 12 or 13 is when I've been actually chasing relationships with people. I got to a point where I had to replace somebody with another person, otherwise I would feel like I was going to die. And obviously that's silly, and I just felt like there were a lot of things I needed to sit with. I had to face a lot of fears to prove to myself that they were just these strange perceptions that I had kind of created and held on to in my head about myself and about life. That, yeah, I had to start just proving to myself that those things were not the end of the world. And then, yeah, unfortunately, I got a little bit too comfortable being single. I would now classify my attachment style with anything romantic as very much avoidant. My standards, I've got some really simple standards that are so difficult to find somebody who will meet them, because, you know, my basic standards of partners and friends is, you know, generally the gist of always trying to learn and be better and do better. Someone who isn't actively and is always trying to unlearn things like racism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, saneism, and then the more specifics that are related to my experience. Honestly, finding something like that is actually very difficult. I now know I'm worth a lot more than what I let myself believe before. I know that I do not deserve the kind of treatment that I have had in the past. I know that I have grown since all of those experiences and am better equipped to deal with things like conflict. I know what I need to do to manage my triggers and things like that. However, it's also trying to find somebody who listens and understands those things about me as well. Like, there was one person I was talking to for a while from a dating app during, I think, one of the lockdown years, maybe 2022, who seemed great in theory, but all of our conversations just kind of always end up being intellectual debates about my lived experience of my different marginalised identities. And it was exhausting. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to educate my partner on every single thing, just like full stop. Like, of course I'm happy to talk about my specific experiences of stuff, but I don't want to have to kind of, explain the concept of asexuality or non-binary or being disabled or chronically ill. Like, I would like to find somebody who understands at least those basic concepts and is kind of in the same mind as me on things, but we would be learning each other's specific experiences of that rather than always having to, I just kind of always felt like it was on me to justify why I've had a bad day when I was just talking about having a bad day. Yeah, like, this is a very long, loaded, complicated topic. I don't know if I've actually done this any justice. I went to a BPD support group briefly during that period of time as well, where I was looking at all these other, mostly older people with BPD who kind of basically self-isolated themselves. And I thought, God, how do you do that? I did that. And in some ways it helped a lot because I didn't have a load of people around me triggering me all the time when I was going through sort of those earlier stages of recovery by myself. But then it got to a point where I was so starved of connection, contact, particularly like face-to-face connection. That's when I started branching out, trying to find in-person friendships. And yeah, I mean, I think this year the plan was to try and put myself out there more this year, to meet more people in person so that I could possibly meet somebody I'd be interested in dating. However, it's definitely not really gone that way with my health stuff. There's been a lot of appointments this year, a lot of complaints, also a lot of work, a lot of career stuff that I don't have the energy to go and do those things necessarily. I don't want to go do them alone. I'd rather be going to things with friends, which is not always easy to arrange. So, but yeah, this year, I think last year I was thinking about it. And then this year is the year that I'm trying to actually go and be outside in the world more, to meet people and hopefully find somebody who fits what I'm looking for and I fit what they're looking for. And it is still hard because I know that all of these things about myself mean it will be more difficult for me to find someone who isn't just going to be a shitbag, basically. Being bi and ace and non-binary and not super masculine, not super feminine, not being skinny, being disabled, and especially the not sexy disabled of Crohn's disease. The fact that those things get in the way of me going out and doing things that are the ways that people meet people and the ways that people get to know each other, usually over food, over drinks, alcohol, clubbing, activities, going to the gym. I don't know. I can't do those things, so I meet people online. That hasn't worked yet. So I've got some really nice friends from online. But yeah, like I think those things do make me sad. And especially as I am approaching 30 later this year, these are things that I'm thinking about more. What do I want my future to look like? Who do I want to be there? And how can I start building that? And then as well, like just generally how do I integrate the life that I have into a life I want to build with somebody? And will our futures that we are both sort of envisioning match up, and where do we compromise? Because I think that's the thing, is that yeah, since deciding to stay single for a while, my brain very, very quickly is like, I'm out. It switches off at like a few red flags, because it is so tired of all the stuff that I have been through and still go through outside of romantic relationships. I think the end message, I guess, of this video is that I would like to have a long-term partner. I think my BPD, the trauma I have around BPD, means that I probably shouldn't be polyamorous, even if I could be in love with more than one person at a time. I just don't think I should be polyamorous because of this history. But also, I have learned that being alone is not so bad. I'm not really even alone if I have/find the right people around me generally. So if I don't find that somebody, it's not the end of the world. And there are lots of other things that make me feel happy and fulfilled. I am a whole person. I'm not a half of a couple, you know. I am a whole person with a whole lot of stuff that I do and I'm dealing with all the time. And I don't have time for people's shit, to be honest. I don't have time for your shit. Yeah, I feel like for me, dating apps are a no. I think that I want to just meet somebody organically and see what happens. And that can be online as well. Like if I make an online friend that ends up developing into something more, that's fine. It's just definitely not a dating app thing though. But yeah, I think that I have done a lot of things to heal and have a lot more tools in my toolkit than I did back when I was dating. But I definitely still have a long way to go because I have never really been able to put those tools into practice in this kind of situation. And that would be a whole new learning curve for me. So I think I know that I would still have kind of a rough time trying to learn on my feet with that, but we will see. Yeah. I genuinely have no idea what I've said. I think my ADHD meds wore off hours ago and forgot to take a second one because of my migraine. Still kind of going on now. I'm exhausted, getting that exhaustion hot face. So if there's anything else I feel like needs to be said, I will probably add it in editing. But yeah, like I think this is a video I wanted to make last year because it was the 5 years then, and I like the rounded numbers of, you know, like half a decade, but I don't think I was ready to make that video. I'm still not really super ready, which is why I've made like a very jumbled version. I don't think I've said anything that I don't want anyone to know. Like I'm not saying things that I'm not okay with saying online. I was going to say comfortable, but I'm not comfortable having this conversation really ever at all. But most things I do are not comfortable, and that's kind of the point. That's kind of the point of a lot of things I do. So yeah, I definitely need to go and lay down now, have a proper rest, cool off a bit too. Yeah, I also think that maybe this is like a good spot as well to start off with about the kind of BPD journey too, that I would like to discuss more here, because it's kind of, you know, that, like I said, that's when I was diagnosed, was 6 years ago, even though I definitely know it's been going on for a long time, way longer than that. And yeah, my recovery sort of really started there properly. And for me personally, BPD often, like, mostly wildly affects my romantic relationships, but also sometimes other relationships too. I always found the worst impact was on romantic ones, because that's where a lot of my insecurities and triggers would come up. I could and can deal with them a lot better within friendships and other relationships, I think, anyway. I don't know, I think that's quite a broad statement, to be fair. But I find that they are most obvious in romantic relationships. It does leak out into other things too, of course, but I do find, for me, it's most obvious in that kind of a setting, which is why I think a lot of people maybe wouldn't necessarily know or guess that I have BPD, because yeah, I am a few years into working on that recovery of all that trauma. Spent a lot of years, and still do, recognising the past me, whether it was a child or not a child, who was wronged by people, where the traumas stemmed from, trying to repair some of that within myself with my therapist and other counsellors I've had over the years. Yeah, and again, I don't know where I'm going, I'm just rambling again, so I'm just gonna go now. So don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share the video if you haven't already. Let me know if you have any thoughts on this, as long as they aren't just being an asshole. I've had so many bad experiences, specifically from talking about BPD, so I'm not taking any of that. That's part of what my 6 years of being single has taught me. I don't have to put up with your shit, so I won't. You will be blocked very quickly after I laugh at you. So yeah, I will see you next week. Bye.